everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we are really excited today to be here to be talking about some non-Hallmark Christmas movies that happened over the last week. And we're covering Lifetime, BET Plus, Netflix, Amazon, all over the place. It's going to be fun. I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and Michelle's here.
Hey everyone.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm excited to talk about these ones, especially
Yes,
one of the Lifetime ones, especially.
Because you've been working retail, so you really do need these Christmas movies to boost your spirits, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's just non-stop Christmas at work as well. So yeah, it's been intense. Hopefully after Christmas it starts to calm down. By the time we're back into to Heartland, hopefully my schedule's calmed down a little bit.
Michelle's like triggered by rocking around the Christmas tree.
Oh my god, yeah. And it's now not just like the sort of like singing Santas and things that we have that are just constantly singing those types of songs. We now have just like constant Christmas songs, and it's just like Fairy Tale in New York's always been my favorite, but I hear it like 5 times every hour. It's like
a popular one there.
Yeah, it's like the same 10 songs on a loop, and it drives me insane. I was like, oh my god, here we go again. And there's also that, and there's like they have I think it's like a Britney Spears like Christmas album or something. It sounds very much like Britney Spears, but it's very sort of depressing. And that's albums that they keep playing. So it's either those 10 songs on a loop or this Britney album. That's all that I heard the last like 2 weeks.
Yeah, that would be enough to get me. Well, hopefully these movies provided some respite for you from all of that. Are you still feeling pretty high about the Christmas movie watching season in general? You think it's been pretty good?
Yeah, I think it's been really good. I am really excited for when we do our top 10.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, because usually you and I see eye to eye a lot, and I think we also do in terms of these movies, but I think our orders are just going to be very different.
Yeah, it's true. That will be interesting to see how it all shuffles out. But all right, well, let's dive in. Let's start with Serving Up the Holidays. This was on the 1st. It was on Lifetime. Britt Irvin, Zach Roning, Scarlett, an incredible chef and co-owner of an upscale restaurant, heads to a holiday cooking getaway in a beautiful villa to relearn festive cooking and maybe find love with a handsome rival chef from her past. So what do you think of this one overall?
Yeah, I'd seen this one last year. Yeah, it aired here last year, so I'm guessing it was an acquire for Lifetime. I like it fine. I sort of put it into the sort of bag of all of the sort of cooking ones. I'm never that sort of high on those ones. I feel like this one was fine. It was a little bit different. I felt like Britt Irvin's character Scarlett was a little bit more sort of chill and responsive. Kind of, she wasn't like fighting the experience the entire time, which can happen a lot in these movies. So yeah, I think that helped a lot. And I really like Zach. I hope they sort of Hallmark or Lifetime or some other network sort of use him. I think I've been a fan of him since the Vampire Diaries, so hopefully he gets used a little bit more.
I feel like Vampire Diaries and Pretty Little Liars they've gotten it's just like main recruiting for these movies.
Yeah, it's like I got to catch them all situation.
Yeah,
especially for Pretty Little Liars. I think they've almost cast every single cast member at one time.
Yeah, and this one I agree was fine. It was pretty basic, but not bad. I thought they worked well together. They did a pretty good job. I thought they did a good job in this movie of making the lodge or whatever feel very cozy and everything to feel cold, and it just being this like cozy spot away from the cold. Like they did that well.
Yeah, and I like that Zach's character was in the sort of fine dining world and was just like, yeah, that's not for me, and just sort of represented different different ways of, making restaurants and cooking your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be these sort of fancy, you know, however many course meals. It can just be, what his character was sort of all about. And I felt like they had a really good group of characters as well, like a really
Yeah.
diverse group of people,
Yeah.
all different ages and walks of life, and all there
Yeah.
for sort of different reasons as well.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was good. This is a total nitpick, but this must have been filmed in like August because they always had their jackets open and they almost never had like a scarf or a hat.
I didn't notice, but yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
I mean, it's supposed to be like there's blizzards all around. It's supposed to be really cold. Come on, we got to do better than that. That's how I've seen too many of these movies. I know this.
You've got to like see if the winter aspect of it is believable or not.
Hmm. But other than that, this was perfectly fine.
Mhm. Yeah, I
I
agree.
give it a 3.
Yeah, I'll go right down the middle as well, 3.
Yeah. Okay. Then we had Rolling Into Christmas. This was on BET Plus on the 1st, and Ryan Nicole Brown, Donnie Carrington, Brandy Evans, Gary Dordan. And it's two childhood sweethearts who shared a passion for roller skating are reunited 15 years later during the holidays, forcing them to question their love and life choices. I've mentioned on this show how I've noticed reviewing these BET movies that they tend to really like sort of soap opera elements,
Mhm.
the love triangles, sort of catty women, gold digging women, cat fights, that kind of thing. You see a lot of in these movies, and kind of have to know that going in if you're going to enjoy it. And this was a shame to me because I felt like all the skating parts were really fun and they did a good job with that. And it was something different. I haven't seen that much roller skating, in these movies. That was fun. But basically, they started out with her and him as little kids in the skating rink and everything and being friends. And then her mother dies. And so she has to go to Germany with her father. And so they keep in touch at first and then they lose touch, and she finally comes back after 15 years. And it was weird because the first like 15 minutes or so, they establish her relationship with this guy. And he's not like painted as a bad man of business or anything. In fact, they have a couple like really cheesy love scenes with her and this guy. And like feeding each other orange sections and stuff. Like it's really cheesy. And so, I mean, they make it seem like you're supposed to be invested in this relationship. Like it's not just a bad man of business or, something like that. And then she goes home to help with her grandma who gets injured and then is put in the path of this guy that she'd grown up with. And so that's where the love triangle kind of comes into place. And he has this girl who is really into him and who's kind of catty and backstabbing and everything like that. And so they turns out they're going to shut down the roller rink, and so they're very upset and trying to stop it from getting shut down. And we've seen this many times, but it wasn't awful. I liked the skating and I thought the two leads were fine, but I just wish they didn't feel the need to, because they don't camp it up enough for it to be like soap opera fun, like soap
Mhm.
operas. I mean, I'm not like, I haven't watched tons of soap operas, but what I have watched, like they take it up to that other level, with like uh evil twins and just really over the top, like cloned women and just ridiculous, and that to me makes them a lot more fun,
Mhm.
whereas this is just kind of, I have to say, after watching what, like 7 of them, I'm getting a little burnout on the catty women who gold digging, and I don't know, I'm a little tired of it. But this one I'd give also three crowns to.
Okay.
Just I did think the skating parts were kind of fun, and I mean they must know their audience. Their audience must really enjoy this type of story, I guess. That's what they made in every single one of them.
Yeah, that's interesting because it does seem like all the other networks are doing the opposite, where they're trying to sort of have, a different type of movie every week, especially Hallmark. They're, different settings, different types of relationships, and,
Yeah.
exploring different things and different sort of time settings and things like that. So yes, it's
Yeah.
interesting that this seems to be what they're sort of happy with.
Yeah, I mean, the closest we got to not having it would have been the Holiday Hideaway, but even that, her dad brings this gold digger, gold digger fiance to
Give the gold digger.
got the gold digger, but 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 anyway, it is what it is. So if people enjoyed it, I hope you did. Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies. Let's talk about Cloudy with a Chance of Christmas. This is on the second on Lifetime. Bridget Torres, Nicole Bilderback, and Brandon Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Prominent forecaster Bridget visits the magical wintry town of Leavenworth, Washington, is tasked with announcing a special snowcast at the annual Christmas Eve festival and has brought her boss, Lisa, along. However, her plans are foiled when a talk show host, Drake Kincaid, arrives to join her for the broadcast. So what do you think of this one?
I felt like this was perfectly fine as well. There wasn't anything. I sort of had high expectations because I really like Brandon.
Yeah.
But I just didn't like the sort of jealousy
Yeah.
aspect throughout the whole thing. It felt like it sort of brought it down for me a little bit sort of throughout it. Every time I felt like I was really getting drawn into their relationship and their romance. It was like just constantly, bringing in this character to, shake things up and, you know, sort of hammer home the jealousy. And it was just sort of waiting on that misunderstanding or, you know, sort of
Yeah, it really did
waiting
kind of
for, yeah.
it did make her character kind of unlikable
Oh,
because she was so sort of petty.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And it just felt like very predictable. Um, we knew exactly what was going to happen, and we were going to end up having to sort of redeem the character in the last 5 minutes, which never really works for
Mm-hmm.
me when you've spent the entire movie making this character be the sort of foil for the main couple.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's sort of a frustrating trope that I really wish they would take out of these characters, these movies, because there's really no need for these type of characters. We had that the Hallmark movie, with sort of the Christmas movie they were making sort of within the movie. Um, and they had sort of the character that you would expect to be the love interest or, the foil to the main romance, and it was the
Mm-hmm.
complete opposite. She was very supportive of the relationship, and it was like, oh my god, like they actually listened and took notes and were like, the audience doesn't want that type of thing anymore.
Mhm.
So yeah, it just felt like a little bit of a setback for me.
Yeah, they have Sarah Jane Morris as this rival
Yeah, and I
to
really like
her.
her.
Yeah, I like her. But you're right. It did like she kind of comes around at the end and it's like, oh, well, you two should really be together, and they kind of make up, and it does kind of all get tied up into a bow. This is writer director Jake Helgren, who we had on the podcast, and he is really great. We love talking to him. And
Hmm.
there were some fun moments in this. It did feel a little, this is one of those ones that feels a little COVID-y to me. And what I mean by that is that it felt like it was all shot in this one hotel.
Hmm.
Like they were in this one place the whole time and they couldn't really, like that's how it kind of felt to me. Which isn't like necessarily a bad thing. It's just something I've started to notice is these ones. And I mean, Brandon Quinn is so great.
Hmm.
Like he's just so charismatic. And if we hadn't already seen him in A Christmas Country Harmony, which was, in my opinion, really good, then that I might be kind of more excited about this,
Hmm.
But it wasn't bad. It was fine.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Um, Probably I would maybe it's one of those ones that's hurt a little bit by the fact that we're now pretty far into the season. So
Yeah,
not
we're
as
starting
forgiving
to
as they
yeah,
were.
we're starting to dip a little. Um, yeah, and I really like Jake as well. He did one of my favorite movies was Dashing in December, a
Uh-huh.
few years ago.
Yeah.
So he's sort of like one of those people. It's like I'm always going to watch what he
Hmm.
makes because of like one movie.
Yeah.
And I've actually never seen Valerie in anything. Um,
I hadn't seen her either. She was new to me.
Stunning, like
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh yeah.
My God. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully we see her again.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean Jake has done he's done both the thrillers and the
Mm.
Christmas movies.
Yeah.
He knows how to deliver. And so yeah, overall, I would give this one a like 3.25.
Yeah, I'll go 3.5.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Then we have Scrooge, A Christmas Carol. This was on the second and Netflix. And Luke Evans, Olivia Colman, Jesse Buckley, Johnny Flynn. Charles Dickens' ageless legend is reborn in this animated supernatural time traveling musical adaptation of the definitive Christmas story. With his very soul on the line, Scrooge has but one Christmas Eve left to face his past and build a better future.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like this summary is very weird because every single version of Christmas Carol is supernatural and time traveling. Like that's not
Yeah.
new. Doesn't do
Yeah.
anything.
And we've seen like a million already this season as well.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the year for, I mean, I know we always get Christmas Carol, but this year, so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah. Like we could literally do a top 10
We
Christmas Carol.
probably will. That's coming. but but yeah, and this one they should have put it in the summary, but this one is an adaptation of the what I think 1979, 80, something like that. Uh the Albert Finney version, 1970, excuse me, 1970 Albert Finney version, Scrooge Christmas Carol, which is they use all of the songs
Hmm.
from that movie in this movie, which I actually thought was really fun. I enjoyed that movie. They didn't do everything the same from that movie. Like in that movie, Scrooge goes to hell.
It's a little dark.
Yeah, it's a little dark. That is more kid friendly than that, but they have most of the iconic songs. I Hate Christmas and thank you very much. That's probably the best song of the show. Is in there, and I was pleasantly surprised by this. I mean, there have been terrible animated adaptations of Christmas Carol. really
Mm-hmm.
bad, a lot. But then of course we have some good ones, like Mickey is probably the best animated one, which I reviewed over on my channel on Rachel's Reviews for Family Movie Night this week. So you should check that out. But I love Mickey's Christmas Carol, and I love the Muppets, and many good versions, but there have been a lot of bad animated ones over the years. And so I approached this somewhat cautiously, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I really liked the animation. For this kind of level of
Mm-hmm.
animated film, I thought it looked pretty. It was nice. And I had a great voice cast, and nice songs, like the songs. And so what do you think?
Yeah, it took me like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes to sort of get into the actual animation style.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, it does look a little, it's not as polished as, what I would expect to see in a movie that, Olivia Colman and Luke Evans was doing voices.
Uh-huh.
It looked like something they would be in. It seems like they would be in something that was more sort of theatre ready. And this, it's very well suited for Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like once it got into Ghost of Christmas Past, and I thought the design of that was fantastic, like the candle design looks so good. Once it sort of got into that bit, it started to look more and more impressive in the way they sort of transitioned, like using space and galaxy sort of this sort of translucent effect sort of throughout all of those sort of transitioning from past, present, future. Um, that all looked really, really good, especially on my TV. So I was really happy with it. I'm not super well versed in a lot of the Christmas Carol adaptations. I've seen, obviously the Muppets and Mickey and a few other ones, but I can't remember actually sitting down and watching the older ones, the one black and white one, the ones from, that was the one that this one is based on, wasn't it? The one from the 70s?
Yes, the 1970.
I can't remember ever sitting down and watching that sort of beginning to end. It's just one of those things. It's just part of culture at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I do, even though I've watched like 5 Christmas Carol movies so far this year, I really should sit down and watch a lot of the older ones. But yeah, I thought this was
Mm-hmm.
really impressive in terms of the voice cast. Like, yeah, I mean, Jessie Buckley, like all of her songs were so good. Her voice is
Mm-hmm.
incredible. And I think Luke Evans just never gets credit for how incredible his voice is either. But yeah, I think this worked
Mm-hmm.
really, really well.
Yeah,
It
I
wasn't
liked.
it wasn't too long either. But they tend to
Yeah,
make animated films so long now. I
yeah,
feel like this
that's
one just
true.
sort of zipped by. And I didn't really, notice the length or anything like that, which is which is always good. When you start to notice the length, there's something wrong.
Yeah, and I'll be excited once this posts. I'll be able to add my review to Rotten Tomatoes because it's at 36%, and I think it deserves way better than that.
Way better.
Yeah, I don't know, but I really liked the design of Past, almost like a Lumiere kind of thing, like this candle.
Oh yeah.
That was very good, and also it was cool design of Jacob Marley as kind
Hmm.
of this robot sort of. I guess
Yeah.
maybe that's what they meant by supernatural. I don't know. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was bright, colorful,
Hmm.
good voice. I'm not sure what else you could do.
Yeah. I don't know if people are sort of holding it up against, something like Klaus because it's, the next Netflix animated Christmas thing, but I think that's really unfair.
Yeah, like this one lady calls it close to unwatchable.
No,
I just don't understand that.
not at all. And I actually like there's one song, I can't remember the name of it, but I did post it on my Instagram stories today. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
ballad between Jesse and Luke. I actually like
Mm,
that song more than anything that was in Scrooged, which is so shocking to me because I love Pasig and Paul, but I just found that this particular song to be really, really impressive and Luke's
yeah, what's
voice
that
is
one
amazing.
called?
I
Let's see.
don't
And it was
know.
kind of fun because I just saw this I saw the staged version of of this in I just reviewed it for Utah Theater Bloggers Association, a local production. So it was kind of fun to see it in an animated form.
Mhm.
Was it Happiness? I think
Uh,
that's the song.
mm,
Isn't that the one between old and young Belle and young Scrooge?
I can't remember. Something, yeah, it's something similar to that. That Life Never Came or something. Yeah, IMDb's
Mhm.
soundtrack credits is not great. Don't
Yeah.
rely on Netflix's IMDb for your soundtrack information. They're terrible.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's what I think it was Happiness. But anyway,
Check out the
it's
soundtrack.
Leslie Bracus is the writer, and he did I think the original Oliver, and let's see here. He did Leslie Bracus did Victor Victoria, which is really fun. Scrooge, Jekyll and Hyde, Victor Victoria, um, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971. That has great songs.
Oh, it was Later Never Came, or Later Never Comes. That's what it was.
Mm,
It's
yeah,
a really good ballad.
yeah, that was yeah. Well, yeah. So I'll be excited to add my review, bump it up a little bit.
That
Because I give it like a 4. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really
or as
good.
well. Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it was really, really good. Let's say it takes maybe take a little second to get used to the animation style, but yeah, for
Mhm.
me, it was really. I haven't seen a lot of animation this year, so I don't have a lot to compare it to. But for
Yeah.
me, it really worked.
Yeah. I agree. All right. So then on the 3rd, we had New Orleans Noel on Lifetime. This stars Keisha Knight Pulliam, Brad James, Patti LaBelle. And of course, Keisha Knight Pulliam and Brad James are a real life couple. So that's super cute. And this was written by Elise Murray, our friend. And it's over the holidays, architects and polar opposites Grace Hill and Anthony Brown are hired to work together on the home of icon Loretta Brown. However, when Anthony learns Grace is celebrating Christmas alone, he invites her to join his family's celebrations. So, what did you think about this one?
I thought this one was really sweet. Um, really sort of high expectations. I feel like Elise Murray's always um taken me to really interesting locations for Christmas
Yeah.
movies. Like you can always rely on her to like show you someplace different. And I'm so used to seeing New Orleans on screen and at night. So it was really interesting to just sort of see it during the day and spend a lot of time there as well.
Yeah.
I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful place. It's definitely like on the bucket list of places I would love to go. And yeah, I thought the movie was really sweet. The chemistry was obviously, sometimes you do get real life couples that weirdly have no chemistry on screen, and it's so strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily that doesn't happen in this one.
Yeah. I mean, I have been to New Orleans Square at Disneyland. So I think that counts, right?
Okay.
But no, I mean, I'd love to go someday. But yeah, they capture New Orleans, I thought, pretty well in this. And I thought the family dynamic was done very well, and her anxieties about uh like fitting in with the family and just like socializing. Like they want her to say grace at one point, and she can't do it. And that seems like a lot to ask your guests on first thing to say grace, but she can't do it. And I thought that was all portrayed pretty well.
Yeah, I thought that
Social
was really,
anxiety.
yeah. I can definitely relate to that, and I would probably react the same way of sort of being put on the spot like that. And
Yeah.
then obviously being sort of on her own and independent and being thrown into this sort of tight, close-knit family. It's definitely a bit of a culture shock for her of just all of those family dynamics. It's really, really I imagine it would be really, really difficult to sort of get used to that. But one of the things I did like about this film is when it first started, I was like, oh, are we going to get like a house renovation sort of storyline? Because we've seen, movies like that before, um, on Hallmark in particular, where the whole focus is on the actual like planning of what they're doing to the house. But I do like that all of that sort of happened in the scenes that we didn't see. It was like we've planned, we've came up with all of the plans and all of it's done. It sort of happened before I knew it. I was like, oh, like they've actually designed the whole house and we didn't have to have those planning scenes, which can really bring these movies down when they rely too much on those sort of whatever it is they're planning or working on. Sometimes they lean a little bit too heavily into them sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. Yeah. Well, and plus the whole premise that the aunt is his being busybody matchmaker, hiring 2 architects for her renovation is kind of a lot.
Yeah. And I feel like, it was so good. And I was so glad because I know that you weren't happy that Patty was only in,
Yes.
a second of the last movie she was in for Lifetime. So I'm glad that she was like a big part of this for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you don't walk away from this one in a praline, then I don't know what's wrong with you. Because, and it is believable because anytime you're making candy, which praline is basically a kind of candy, you have to get it up to a certain temperature, you have to get it to a certain state. So it's like the soft crack hard, like there's the different states of candy making. It's tricky. If you get it too hot, you get it not hot enough, it won't work. And so there's like a science kind of behind candy making that I have not mastered.
Mm-hmm.
I have not. I've maybe successfully made fudge, but I've tried doing other kinds of candy over the years, and it's just never really worked out very well. So I thought that he could figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. And it seems like there was definitely some sort of secret ingredient there that she just wasn't going to let on about.
Yeah. Yeah. He finally figured it out at the end. Mm-hmm. Was it like bourbon or something? There was some secret.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one I thought was fun. I give it 3.5.
I'll give it 3.75.
Mm-hmm. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the good folks at Baker Publishing Group. They have a special deal right now. If you go to their website, bakerbookhouse.com/featured/Hallmarkies and enter code Hallmarkies40, that you will get 40% off any of the books that we're talking about today. And today we are talking about sweet historical romances. This is the perfect book for the hearty in your life. If you have a fan of One Calls the Heart, they will love these books. First, let's start with Under the Starry Skies by Tracy Peterson. When an accident leaves Cassandra Barton incapacitated, she spends her time compiling a book of stories about the men working on the Santa Fe Railroad. But worry grows as revolutionaries set out to destroy the railroad. As danger intensifies, Cassie and her longtime friend Brandon must rely on their faith to overcome the obstacles that stand in the way. Next, A Model of Devotion by Mary Connolly. A brilliant engineer, Jilly Stiles, sets her focus on fulfilling her dream of building a mountaintop railroad and remaining independent. But when a cruel and powerful man goes to dangerous lengths to try to make Jilly his own, marrying her friend Nick may be the only way to save herself and her dreams. Next, A Daughter's Courage by Misty M. Beller. Charlotte Durand sets out on an expedition in search of a skilled artisan who can repair a treasured chalice. But her hike becomes much more daunting when a treacherous snowstorm sets in. When Damien Levette finds Charlotte stranded, they must work together to survive the peril of the mountains against all odds. A Gem of Truth by Kimberly Woodhouse. Longing for a fresh start, Julia Schultz takes a job as a Harvey girl at the El Tovar Hotel, where she's challenged to be her true self. United by the discovery of a legendary treasure, Julia and master jeweler Christopher Miller find hope in each other. But when Julia's past catches up with her, will she lose everyone's trust? Then The Lady of Galway Manor by Jennifer Dybel. In 1920 Galloway, amid the Irish War of Independence, the daughter of a British landlord becomes an apprentice jeweler to the descendant of the creator of the famed Claddagh ring. As the two learn to work together and see each other in a new light, they start to uncover the true meaning of love, loyalty, and friendship. And finally, The Secrets of Emberwild by Stephania H. McGee. Nora Fenton inherits a struggling horse farm and a dangerous secret from her father, one that new horse trainer Silas Cavallero threatens to uncover as he searches for the truth behind his own father's death. As the two grow closer over their shared passion for horses, the mysteries and dangers of the past loom closer than ever. So head over to bakerbookhouse.com/featured/Hallmarkies to pick up one of these great books and use code Hallmarkies40 for 40% off these titles from November 14th to December 12th. That's bakerbookhouse.com/featured/Hallmarkies and use code Hallmarkies40 for 40% off. I will talk about one of the ones that I saw in theaters. There's I Heard the Bells. This is in theaters, and this is done by the Sight and Sound people. That they have this really famous what do you call it? Theater, like live theater that I've heard a lot about. I think it's in Pennsylvania, I think. Anyway, that's very famous, that they put on like big biblical productions with lots of spectacle to them. And this is their first time ever doing a film. So this is faith-based film. But in my opinion, this is how you do a faith-based film. It's got Stephen Atherholt and Jonathan Blair, Rachel Day Hughes. Known as America's poet, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow leads an idyllic life until the day in his world is shattered by tragedy. With a nation divided by civil war and his family torn apart, Henry puts down his pen, silenced by grief. But it's the sound of Christmas morning that reunites the poet's lost voice as he discovers the resounding hope of rekindled faith. So this is obviously based on true story. It's a period piece. And the famous hymn, I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. It's one of my favorites. And so it was really neat to hear the backstory about how he wrote that hymn/carol. And I thought that this was all done very well. The production values, the acting. There was a little bit in the script, if I was going to nitpick, there was some times when I felt like the language was a little modern for these characters. Like people would be like, hey, how's it going? You know, kind of thing. I was just like, I'm exaggerating, but they would just use sort of modern, sometimes more modern than I think they should have. So that was a little bit of a flaw, but that's true also with The Chosen. The Chosen is a very good show. If you want a biblical faith-based show, it's about the life of Christ. It is excellent, but it is also has a lot of modern language. Like literally at one point, one of the apostles says that I'm freaking out. Like, so, but it's all so well done that, you know, it's fine. But anyway, it moved me. I cried. I thought that it was well done. And what I'm saying about faith-based films is that too often they get too fixated on, okay, what ministry are we going to be promoting through this film? And they even, like in War Room, for instance, it's all about like literally about creating your own war room and uniting with God and everything. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not a movie. Like that's a like tutorial, right? And so then they have literally at the end of the movie, if you want to get involved, here's phone numbers, whatever. And that's not a movie to me. What's a movie is when you have characters and a story and emotion. And I think that faith-based films work the best when they just focus on one person's story or a family's story conversion. And that's when it feels the most authentic to me. And again, you're not trying to start like this ministry. And that's what they did with this. This was just about the Longfellow family and about his story and his grief and overcoming it and dealing with it and his personal conversion. And so that's where I would recommend they go with these films. The a great one of the best that they've ever done is I Can Only Imagine, which has its flaws. The actor is like 35 in high school. It's ridiculous, but it does focus on one person's conversion, one person's story, and it has a great song that pays off, right? So that would be my advice if anybody working in faith-based films is listening.
Yeah, I've seen that one, and that was
Good,
I
right?
couldn't believe what I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I was seeing him play a teenager. I was like, what is happening right now?
But other than that, and the lady who they got to play Amy Grant, I mean, she looked exactly like her. I thought it was her. That was very impressive. I thought it looked exactly like her. Anyway, that's when I think that they can be quite good. I also can't think of the name all of a sudden, but the one with John Corbett. There's what's it called? All Saints. All Saints. If you're looking for a really good faith-based film, there's one called All Saints with John Corbett, where he plays this pastor who decides to start this church farm for the Vietnamese and the Laotian refugees that are there to help them. And the thing I liked about that movie is that you not only see his personal journey, but things don't go well for the farm. Like it's kind of a disaster. And he really starts to sort of doubt God and why isn't God helping them with this noble goal? What is happening? And so I don't know, I just felt like it had a nuance to it that you don't always see in these movies. And him kind of when he really does come around with his faith and he's strong, like he's earned it because there's been lots of moments of doubt and struggle and the whole, I thought they portrayed the immigrants in it really well. It was just a really good movie. Very, I would say underrated. So anyway, okay. So I would give this one 4 crowns. Heard the Bells. I think if you are open to period piece, something a little sadder, but still inspirational, well done, faith-based film, I think this is worth hunting down. Okay, well, let's talk about Merry Textmas. This was on the 4th on Lifetime, Ariana Ron Pedrique and Rodrigo Massa. And it's Gabby, an app developer from Austin, Texas, and the last unmarried sibling in her family, heads to her abuela's house in Oaxaca, Mexico for the holidays. When she accidentally adds Alex Alvarado, a graphic designer who's lost touch with his own Mexican roots, to the family group chat, her family invites him to come along for the holidays. Everyone already knows what I thought of this. What did you think of it?
I mean, this was so good.
Yes.
It was such a breath of fresh air. And it makes me sad that people aren't watching this, or I feel like people aren't watching this because, and also just think the title doesn't help because I
Yeah, I
tried
agree.
to like look at the hashtag and it was nothing to do with this movie. Unless they're using
Yeah,
like a different hashtag, I'm not sure.
I really wish that it had been Christmas in Oaxaca or something like that. Something that brought in the fact that this was filmed in Mexico, that it's all Mexican bilingual film. Merry Textmas, not great.
No, not great. And yeah, I feel like subtitles also tends to keep people away, and I was so impressed with the fact that like 40% of this movie is subtitled,
Yes.
like a huge part of it. And they don't sort of make it easy for Alex. Like he's coming in being the English speaker, and they don't sort of speak English all the time just to you know, sort of help Alex get by. They are very much like not exclusive, not excluding them in any sort of way, but you feel like in another movie, it would, because we've seen these movies where they're like in a different country and they're all speaking English. That's not reality.
Yeah.
This is reality.
Yeah.
Alex is just sort of scraping by and being taught the language, and mishaps happen.
Yeah.
This is probably one of the only movies where there's been a miscommunication that actually is believable.
Yeah, it
Because
was
it's like
so
a natural language
refreshing
barrier.
to have this bilingual, to
Hmm.
have the movie be bilingual, because they yeah, because that's how it would be, especially if you had an American with you, then you're gonna switch. You're gonna go back and forth. When you're talking to Abuela, you're gonna be speaking Spanish. When you're talking to Alex, you're going to be speaking English. And it's gonna go back and forth. And that's what they did in this movie.
And not everyone speaks English either.
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like that happens a lot in these movies as well. Is like everybody speaks English.
Yeah.
There's multiple people in this movie that have very little English.
Mm-hmm.
Which again is reality.
Right.
So yeah, I love this movie, and I also feel like it didn't look like anything that I had seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Especially even the other ones that have, celebrated sort of more Mexican aspects of Christmas. They just don't look like this. I feel like this is
Yeah.
so immersed in its place.
Yeah, not even
Um,
just Mexico, but particularly to Oaxaca. When I was talking to Ariana and Rodrigo, they said some of these traditions they had never even seen. He said he lived in Mexico for 13 years and he had never heard of the breaking the plates. He never seen the radish sculptures before. That was like all new even to them.
oh, interesting. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I just have never seen anything like it. Um, yeah, and I feel like if you just want something different, if you want a little bit of a break from, seeing the same type of, decorations, or it just
Yeah.
the whole aesthetic, this is completely different and
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting. Um, and yeah, I don't know where they found these actors. Is this all an acquisition?
Well, it said in the it said in the Showbiz Daily in the ratings, it said acquisition, but it sounded like from talking to Rodrigo that they were working with Lifetime pretty early on. So, because he was talking about that he went to them about the song they wanted to have, which I thought was a really good song. I love the song, and there's a music video on Lifetime, which is awesome, and with him
Well,
and singer Andra, who I guess is really famous in Europe.
yeah, oh, really?
Yeah, he was saying. And so that, and he said he worked with Lifetime early on in that. So it sounds like they were pretty involved, at least in it from the beginning. One thing I am hearing from enough people that it must have some validity is that there were some ADR problems. I watched it on Screener, and I think you did as well. And so I don't think we got those problems, but I'm just hearing it from enough people that particularly in the first 15 minutes, there's some kind of ADR problems.
I
So
did
that's
watch a little bit
unfortunate.
because I did record it, and I did see a little bit of like it's almost like it's ADR'd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like not almost sort of like dubbed.
Yeah.
They're sort of dubbing their own lines, which is weird.
Well, I mean,
So
they do
yeah, I
that a
feel like
lot. If there's like they're in like a loud area or something like that, they'll ADR it.
but I feel like
But
it sounds like it's entire scenes.
yeah, it's usually just words or sentences or something like that. So that's unfortunate if they didn't. And you have to have good teams that are good at the ADR. So it
Yes, exactly.
sounds like that was a little sloppy, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I loved all the little scenes when they were working on the app. First for her with that like power hoodie on, and then they're like cuddling, working on it on her bed in the room. That was so cute. And then later on, when she's talking to Abuela and Abuela had ordered him to come back and meet up with her and on the app, and 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 Abuela's like, I know what I would do. Got 15 minutes. It was cute. And I loved the scene where they were dancing. Thought that was
Mhm.
great. Really
Yeah,
good.
that was really good because they sort of
Yeah.
built that up, that they were going to be the dancers, and it was like, okay, there has to be it has to be good. And I feel
Mhm.
like they really delivered on that. And I will say,
Yeah.
like, I've not seen Rodrigo in anything.
Me either.
And I feel like he was cast really well because this is such a hard part. Like, how do you bring someone in to your family and make it sort of
Mhm.
believable? But I feel like Alex, he's so charming, and
Mhm.
you know, you sort of, there's something just about him, like how warm he was. I don't
Mhm.
quite know how to describe it, but there's nothing sort of threatening about him in any way. He's just sort
Yeah.
of, it makes it believable that this family would want him around.
Yeah, and the family all had great chemistry. I thought the couple had great chemistry, and I loved the little scenes with all of the women talking. It's like, oh, is he a good? Oh, he is a good kisser. All that. That's fun.
Yeah.
It's great.
I like
Uh,
that he just didn't have his family around, that he didn't have the sort of like tragic backstory,
right.
or yeah, that he was an orphan, or any of
Hmm.
these types of storylines. He just was lonely this Christmas. And this
Yeah.
family took him in. And I feel like that's all you need sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that the miscommunication was believable with him, with the mayor, the like you were saying, the
Believed that event, yeah, that I would
mhm.
actually believe that this would happen.
And she gets kind of huffy, but she gets over it pretty quick. And they have a nice, they apologize to each other and a nice hug. And then they go on this truck, this Christmas truck, and it was all decked out, and all this whole parade and everything was so fun, I
Hmm.
thought. And she teaches him the meaning of the word beso, which I love. Just kiss. And she's like, I think you need to know the meaning of beso.
Yeah, I loved when they got given the sort of kids
Yeah, like a
like
coloring book kind of thing for learning Spanish. That's really good. And yeah, and then the
doesn't get
whole
Duolingo, he just gets like a
yeah. And then they have this whole parade, and they're all decked out, and she's got this beautiful dress on, and flowers in her hair, and they're all, and earlier in the movie they have this whole discussion about how Americanizing their names bothers them, that they,
Mhm.
instead of Gabriella, it's Gabby; instead of Alejandro, it's Alex. And so at the end of the movie, when she says Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad, Alejandro, it like comes
Yeah.
full circle. And that's how you know when something's a good script. When things are, then when you get that kind of payoff, you
Yeah, you get that
know
sort
that
of
this
full
is,
circle moment, yeah.
yes. It's just like a little detail, but I really thought that that was an interesting kind of thing, because you think, oh, it's just like a nickname, it's not a big deal. But it was, I think, a meaningful conversation that they had, and that for it to come back at the end was great.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
loved it. I thought it was absolutely great. I, been raving about it ever since I saw it, because I knew it's the kind of thing that people aren't going to see,
Mhm.
if they don't hear that it's good. And so hopefully it'll have like a kind of a second life on VOD, and on that people will find it and discover it. But I'm going to give it a 4.75, just because from what I'm hearing about these ADR things. But it's definitely one of my favorites of the year.
Yeah, yeah, I'll give it a 4.75 as well. I really hope people watch it. Don't let subtitles be a barrier.
Yes.
Just immerse yourself in it.
Mhm. If
It's
anything, that
such
should
a good
add to the
movie.
experience. It did for me.
Yeah, for sure.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies, or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
So, all right. Then we had one that you saw that I didn't see, Your Christmas or Mine. I haven't gotten to see it yet. This is on Amazon. And it's Haley and James are young and in love. They both make the same mad split second decision to swap trains and surprise each other, passing each other in the station. They're completely unaware that they have just swapped Christmases. So what do you think of this one? Sounds fun.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Oh,
And
good.
it actually wasn't as I thought it would be, in your words, a little bit more spicy, but it wasn't. It was actually really sweet. And it sort of becomes more about their families, because they switch Christmases. So she's with his family, he's with hers. And I think the more interesting one was when she was with his family, because his family basically just consists of his dad. And his dad is grieving the loss of his wife. And he doesn't really celebrate Christmas. And so it was sort of a more interesting sort of seeing her bring out the Christmas spirit in him a little bit more. And he's played by his I said Butterfield's dad is played by Alex Jennings, who um he sort of played royalty in like probably half of his IMDb credits. Half of those roles are some form of royalty. And that's no different in this film. He plays a lord. And yeah, it's really funny. There's like Prince Charles jokes, and of course he played Prince Charles in The Queen. And yeah, so she sort of is experiencing Asa Butterfield's character's James's life as sort of this very lower down the pecking order royal. He sort of says that he's 300th and something like in line to the throne. Like a lot of people would have to die for him to be king. So and she comes from a sort of lower middle class family, so he's sort of seeing what her upbringing was like and what her family dynamic is like, which is the complete opposite to his. So it was sort of nice that they sort of learn about each other through their family. But yeah, I did sort of feel like we just didn't get enough of them together. That's the only thing that I would sort of criticize, is we sort of see them at the beginning and sort of towards the end, and it's a little bit of communication between them in the middle. But yeah, it feels like the movie was trying really hard to keep them apart, because it's so hard now with phones and technology, and it just doesn't make sense that they wouldn't be able to contact each other in some way. She loses her phone at one point, but again, that just wouldn't cause them to not speak or not communicate today. So I feel
I mean,
like
it sounds
that was
almost
the
like
only.
a new take on a Very Merry Mix-Up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like this was it sort of is a little bit more serious than I expected. There is obviously comedy elements, and her family is sort of this very um I don't quite know how to describe them, but yeah, they're just this very sort of madcap family. And that's sort of the stronger sort of comedy element in it. But it feels like it was half the movie was a comedy and half the movie was this sort of very somber um story about grief. So it was a little bit it's a little bit strange going back and forth, but overall I really enjoyed it. I do just wish we saw them on screen a little bit more together.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what would you give it? 1 to 5?
I'm going to give it a 3.5. I
Okay.
did really like it. But yeah, I just want the main couple to actually be together in the movie.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Next, we have a Hotel for the Holidays. This was on Amazon Freezy app, and it stars Madeline Pesh and Mina Masad. It follows staff and guests at the Hotel Fontaine in New York City during Christmas time. And that's a really, really short summary. But basically, she plays sort of the manager of this hotel, and Mina is the chef, and she has to look for a new spot for this hotel because they're going to be selling it. And so she has to try to figure that out. And yeah, there's like all these little stories from these different people. And I was expecting this to be better because it's
Mm-hmm.
directed by Ron Oliver, written by Ron Oliver. I thought it was, and it has like this great cast. And but they really didn't use uh everybody's in it so briefly, and you spend most of the time with Madeline's character and her like looking for a new hotel. And so this movie was just kind of boring. I didn't really love it. I thought it was very slow, and I was just not invested in her character. I found her to be kind of annoying. I mean, I like Maina, but he's a very much a supporting character in this. Like, you'll be disappointed if you're expecting a lot of him. And it's got Jane Eastwood, who's always great, but she's not in it that much. And it's just a lot of this woman that I don't know. So I did not like this one. I don't recommend it. I give it 2 crowns.
Oh, that's such a shame.
I
It's so interesting
know.
when they have like somebody like Madeline, who I really like. Like, she's in Riverdale, and I know everybody sort of criticizes that show, but for
Hmm.
me, it's like a show that he knows exactly what it is and leans into it.
Yeah.
Um, and she's so good in that show, and you always have that where you have an actor that's so good in a show or a particular thing, yet they can't seem to cast them right in movies. It's so interesting for me. Like, there's so many actors that just pop on shows, and then when they make that shift into movies, they just find it really difficult. And yeah, and for Mina as well, I just don't understand why he's not a massive star. I mean,
Yeah.
I know Aladdin wasn't, you know, the Disney remakes are what they are. They aren't
Hmm.
great. For me, the majority of them, there's no need for them. I don't understand why they're making shot for shot live action remakes. It makes no sense to me. Um, but he
Yeah.
was very well cast in that movie, and one of the better things about the movie. And yeah, he definitely has like this leading man quality to him. So yeah, it's a little crazy to me that you're saying that he's not actually used in the movie that
No.
much. It's
Like, I
so.
even liked the one where he plays the prince
Mm-hmm.
from this year better than this. I would rather, I forget what that one was called, but it was better. It was better than this. But yeah, it's a bummer. The last one we're going to talk about, was in theaters as well. This is called It's Christmas Again, and it stars Lawson Talatas and Leela Owen. It's Jake wants nothing more than to spend his Christmas vacation with his girlfriend Abby. So when Abby volunteers for her church's Christmas play, Jake is ready to skip Christmas this year until an unexpected turn of events lands him in a field outside Bethlehem on the night Jesus was born. While on his journey with the shepherds to find the promised Messiah, Jake discovers the true meaning of Christmas. So the
Yeah, I looked this up on IMDb, and I saw the poster, and I was like, what is this? What is happening? I watched the
yeah.
trailer, and I was like, oh my God, I'm dying to hear how you're going to describe this to me.
Yeah, so basically he has this experience where he there's like a dream kind of experience where he ends up in Bethlehem, and he visits the baby Jesus and everything. And overall, I thought this was okay. It is refreshing, admittedly, as a Christian, to have one thing of all of these Christmas movies that actually talks about Jesus and is actually about, the nativity story. So I think I do give it some credit for that. The fact that it is actually about Jesus. It's
Mhm.
nice. I have one movie. uh, and there are nice moments and there are nice songs, but the songs I would say are very hit and miss. It's trying way too hard to be Hamilton. I was like, I felt like looking to see, that Christian church that put on Hamilton. I'm like, did they co-fund this? Because I think, the one that got sued. I don't know if you heard about that, but they made a Christian version of Hamilton.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And so there's lots of hip hop and rapping, and that's terrible. But there are some, nice songs, nice moments. And he does start to kind of learn and change from being with the baby Jesus. And I think if you are a person of faith, I mean, I've seen way worse faith-based films. And so I think if you are of faith and you want a movie about Jesus, I think this is okay. It's not a ringing endorsement by any means, because the rapping I just couldn't get behind, but there's a lot of it, unfortunately. It's like 2-3 songs that are rapping. Like, oh no. But I'd give it 3.
Okay, that's
3
more than I
crowns.
thought. Yeah, it's just the poster is wild to me.
Yeah. For the right audience, I'd give it 3.
Yeah, it made a
like,
bit more sense when the actual trailer started and they started singing. I was like, oh, it's a musical. That's why the poster is so like they're all dancing in the background.
yes. Oh yeah, look at that poster. Well, and I guess they have like half the side is regular and half the side is ancient Bethlehem. So yeah, I feel like especially somebody that's like evangelical, that's
Mhm.
that likes a particular kind of evangelical music, things like that, that they'll really enjoy this.
Mhm.
But I just wish they hadn't tried to be Hamilton.
Yeah.
We've already got one Hamilton. We don't need this. So there we go. We did it. We
If you're going to
finished.
strive for something, at least, go a little bit less than Hamilton.
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
It's a high bar.
Yeah, very.
So let us know if you got to see any of these. Would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And Michelle, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Michelle R. Benson.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Please check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. We still don't have our Facebook, so don't look there. It's disabled, and we'll probably never get it back, sadly. But everything else we're on. And please leave your ratings and reviews if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify. It helps us a lot. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We have our interview that we'll be posting the same day as this with the Merry Textmas stars. So you definitely want to check that out. It was really fun. So look for that. And let's see what else did make sure to check out the Patreon group. It's a lot of fun. We're having a watch along this weekend with Erica Provost for saying yes to Christmas. And so I don't know any Patreon that gives as much benefits as ours does and access to the stars. So please take a look at that. And then we also have our merch store, which you have another about a week to get in your holiday orders in for Christmas. So please take a look at that, and you can support the pod and get some great festive designs and anything for the hearty Hallmarky postable in your life. It's all there. So thanks so much, everybody. And thanks, Michelle, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.